Hey, Xandra, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm really excited about this interview and about sort of learning about your background, about the work you're doing with the OC Angels. And I see the background, which is beautiful. And we're going to get into a lot of sort of nitty gritty and your 7-point technique and all those things. But let's start out with your background first, because you have a really interesting background. You had a corporate sort of a national accounts and that kind of a background, and then you went into the entrepreneurial space. So let's start with that. Tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
how you sort of got started.
Well, I'm happy to be here, number one. And, it's funny when I look back at my experience, my corporate, my professional experience, how that really serves me as a startup investor. I couldn't have planned it any better. And mind you, when I started out in corporate America, I didn't know what venture capital was or angel investing. I didn't know any of that. So I started at Toshiba America here in Irvine, and worked my way through the purchasing department there, became worldwide commodity manager, and led a team. And so this is the late 80s. I led a team of engineers from Japan. Toshiba America wanted to be able to take advantage of tax breaks that the US government at the time was offering if you had 51% domestic content. So being a 23-year-old young professional, not really knowing what I was doing because I was kind of thrust into this position, but taking these teams, and number one, garnering their trust. They spoke little English. They were engineers. They came to the US to do a job, to find the vendor base here. And here they are working with this 23-year-old young woman, and they don't understand her. So I had to really, and I did that. It's another story for another day. I really garnered their trust. And then I took these teams all around the United States, looking at the different manufacturing bases. We basically had to do an M&A workup on each company that we were thinking of sourcing some componentry from, because we didn't want to be their sole, customer, because if we did go away, we didn't want them to go under, but they also had to be able to scale with the volume that we were bringing to the US. So I really cut my teeth on, basically looking at a company from the ground up. Do you own your building? Are you leasing equipment? What's your capital outlay before our business? And those principles really play into a lot of the startups that I invest in. So I started at Toshiba. And then I ended my career at Ingram Micro. In between, then I worked at startups up in the Silicon Valley, where they actually gave you stock options and signing bonuses, which was very exciting. And then I ended my career at Ingram Micro, which is here in Orange County. They are the largest distributor. Back then, they were the largest distributor of hardware and software in the world, the middleman, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I managed their largest account at the time, and this is like late 90s, a $200 million account called OnPoint. I was the account manager for that, so managed a team of people within Ingram Micro to support their needs. And that I learned a lot there too. It's more of the cost of doing business. Every time we brought on a product line or software, there was cost of people touching it, moving it through logistics, through our ecosystem, that we had to model into the price of each unit that we sold to that customer. And that I learned a lot. I learned like lifting the lid on really what's the true cost of doing business when you bring on a product line for existing customer. And we did what we're called modeling. So I had this one engineer, or this one analyst that would just like, I kept him so busy. I'm like, you need to model this line, you need to model that line. We're modeling because we were adding lines, we were taking lines away. So that whole body of experience really served me when I started becoming an angel investor. So in 1998, I retired from Ingram Micro to raise my children. In 2008, I started managing our assets, small family office here. We're invested in real estate, private equity, dividend paying stock portfolios, mortgage bonds, you name it. The thing, if I understand it, we invest in it. Makes us great money. But that segued into, we had disposable income. Should we buy another boat? Should we buy a fourth, fifth, sixth home, another apartment building, jewelry, whatever. Right. And one of my colleagues here, she worked for a lot of large multinational banks and private equity. And our kids went to school together. And she goes, Xandra, you should become an angel investor. And I'm like, what is that? And I didn't really realize that number one, I worked for a startup in the 90s in Silicon Valley. It was called K-Lock, and we made the first removable disk drive, if you could believe it. Back in those days, you can't remove a disk drive. It has to stay in the computer. Right. It has to stay. Okay, why would you want to remove it? It's very delicate. You can't move it. It's like, no, we made it. It was great. And it was a full startup. I mean, truly was. I wore 4 hats. And then my husband worked for a startup. He was employee number 20 at a little tiny company called Broadcom. And we had that startup journey. We went from making hundreds of thousands of dollars up in Silicon Valley to making $40,000 because we decided to go with more stock. We could afford to, but I lost my job in Silicon Valley. We moved to Orange County. I'm like, there's no tech down here. It all went to Silicon Valley. But I found my way to Ingram, which was wonderful. But in the meantime, I'm like, what am I going to do? But we're living, two of us are living, and we could, on $40,000 a year. We moved to Foothill Ranch because that's all we could afford. 1-bedroom apartment. I said, as soon as I get my job, we're moving to Newport. When we did, I'm like, I'm not living here. We're not having kids yet. Although Foothill Ranch is beautiful. We just were, young and no kids yet. But I never saw him. For the first year, he was commuting up to LA, 100-hour weeks. It was this typical startup situation where we don't want you to leave the office. Here's some comfy cots. We're going to feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, anything you want. We're going to play music, just to keep them there, to keep building what they were building. So we really, truly did have that startup. It was a small company. We used to take company trips together. Everyone, that first founding team really got to know each other. So we understand that journey. And, but I didn't really realize this is, I have been involved in startups just from a different perspective.
Right.
So in 2013, my friend brought me to a few local groups here that were looking at startup opportunities. And I kind of learned the process. And I was one of those. The first thing I saw, I loved, I got it. I wanted to invest into it. And she was an advisor. And then one of my friends, Bart Greenberg, he helped me a lot too. He's a family friend, and he's also one of the top startup attorneys here in Orange County.
Right.
And they gave me all this advice on the deals that I was looking at. I didn't listen to any of it. I went with my gut. I thought, I believe in this person. I believe in what they're doing. I didn't have an investment thesis.
Right.
Well, it didn't take long for me to lose money, and that sucked. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here? And they're like, well, you didn't listen. I'm like, okay, I get it. What's your investment thesis, Xandra? Why are you writing the check? What is your due diligence process? I go, what? Huh? So I backed up a little bit, and I'm like, well, I didn't like losing that money, but I could afford to. That's what I coach my members. Right. This is play money. This is money you can burn in a trash can because the risk is so high. It's like gambling in Vegas.
Right.
And you can have the most vetted thing. And I can tell you stories of stuff that, it's going great. We're doing millions and millions of dollars, and bam, out of business in 1 year. I mean, it's great until you exit. It's real, but that can take a long time.
Right.
So it has to be money that's disposable. You can't be expecting this to be your retirement or making a dividend off of it. That's not what this is.
Right.
So we had disposable income and made my first investments. That sucked. But from the analysis, I learned two things. Number one, you have to have an investment thesis. And number two, you need to really go and do an autopsy on what didn't work.
Yep.
Because if you really go through each deal and why it didn't work, you'll definitely, learn from that. That shouldn't happen, or that was too soon, or you'll find, the holes in the plan.
That's so important. Yeah.
The plan is to kind of identify those holes as you're moving forward and investing in other deals. Yep. Is really understanding the traps, the barriers, what we didn't see. And you can try to do that in due diligence, but with the groups I'm aligned with, we all do due diligence in a very similar way, but at the end of the day, you're still taking a risk, but you've done your homework.
Yep.
That's really what due diligence is.
And I love this this whole arc, your arc of starting with a corporate background, learning all of these individual pieces. So you became, you understood modeling, which is huge, right? Mm-hmm. Very few people in the world actually understand that art. And the fact that you had firsthand knowledge, you got to work in startups, you got to work with larger corporates to see how those startups scale into the corporates. So you learned all of these little pieces, and now with firsthand experience and obviously losing your own money, it doesn't matter how much money it is. You could be a millionaire and you lose $10, and it's that stings. It's like, I have to make sure I don't do that again.
Yes.
But losing that money, I think that sort of brings it home, and that now you sort of have to start developing all of those, the due diligence muscle, as I like to call it. And you're absolutely right. There are due diligence, there are a bunch of things that you can look for that are sort of hard filters, and you can make sure that the company has the best chance for success. But there's a lot of intuition, and that intuition is only built with experience.
Yes.
And the experience is with losses. So that's perfect that you sort of went through that journey. And now, I think we're up to about 2016, 2017, and now you
Yeah.
sort of you're developing your investment philosophy. So let's continue on that story, because I think it gets really juicy from here on out. So
Yeah.
tell me about that.
So I started investing in 2013. I'd maybe had 3 or 4 deals, in my portfolio at that, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe at that point.
Okay.
And I had some lady friends here in Orange County that they were seeing what I was doing, and they wanted to learn. And so I invited them and I was part of Tech Coast Angels as well. I actually joined Tech Coast Angels a few months after I started OC, but I had many friends in Tech Coast Angels. Our kids went to school together: Bill Waldo, Bart Greenberg, David Friedman. I knew a lot of the people in that group. I already had, I had knowledge. It was a very, very, came with, high, great reputation here in Orange County for bringing great deal flow.
Yep.
And so I went to a few of those meetings. I brought some lady friends sometimes, and they just didn't feel comfortable. Number one, it's overwhelming. The things you're hearing, the pitches are exciting to see, but then you're in this group with these, captains of the universe, and they know what to ask, and they know what to do, and they've done it. But we're sitting back going, well, we're learning. So it was a little overwhelming for them, and they really weren't understanding the deal flow. So they thought, I said, this is a great group. There's a great group of people. They have a mentorship program. You're not left alone. They just didn't feel comfortable. So that kind of, I thought maybe I should start a women's group. So in 2016, Q4 2016, I had 2 soft launch meetings at my yacht club, the Bahia Corinthian Yacht Club, and I had about 40 people come to each one of them. And the feedback was, yes, we need this group. So I launched OC Angel Investors. We're a women angel investment group. In January 2017. We now have 45 members. We're based at the UCI Cove. We typically have our screenings there, but since COVID, we're doing it on Zoom. And I'll talk to that, how that's working for us.
Yeah.
And so our mission at OC Angel Investors is to educate, connect, and inspire women to learn more about angel investing. And that's our approach. It's much more of a slower, methodical approach. I mentor every single one of them. I walk them through all the due diligence. I explain to them my investment thesis, my history, how I got here. And my investment thesis is the investment thesis for OC. So I talked about that 7-point criteria.
Yeah.
And that's basically my personal criteria of each company. Before I take a deeper dive to see if it's a good fit for our group, they have to meet that criteria.
Yeah, so I definitely want to get into the 7-point criteria, but before, let's touch on some of these other groups that you're part of also. So you mentioned Tech Coast Angel, which is sort of the 600-pound gorilla in the Southern California area. Now I think they even have chapters in Northern California, but they're sort of the big player, and they source a lot of deals. You have your own firm, OC, which is great, but you're connected with a couple of other funds also, right? Titan and things like that. So let's touch on some of those other players, because let's start there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as I'm diversified in my regular investments that make me income, I want to be diversified with my angel investments. So I'm a limited partner in the Cove Fund, which is a $15 million venture fund based at the UCI Cove, but not affiliated with UCI, but great leadership. The pricing model, I'm very particular on venture funds. And the reason is, especially when they're in the startup space, the reason is you're paying a 2 and 20. Typically the cost structure is you're paying a 2 and 20 to be in a fund that has they can't guarantee you're going to have any exit. And it could take years and years and years, but I'm still paying a management team to check the wind and do the stuff I could do. The same thing I'm doing, but I'm paying them 2 and 20. Now there's a place for that. Large family offices, private equity, fund to fund, they don't want to go do all the research. They'll just go with a reputable fund and put some money to play there and see if it'll work. So there's a place for it, but I've seen a proliferation in the past 2 years of new funds being managed by inexperienced fund managers, people that haven't even written a check. So I'm always leery of that. But that's why I love the model with the Cove Fund. And the fund managers there, Howard Mirowitz, Paul Voice, and Mike Benvenuti, rock stars. They're legends, and they've done this before. They come from a really great background, and as many of our LPs in that fund. So that's a really great fund to be in, because they are investing in things where I don't have the technology knowledge, I don't have the background, but I trust them. And when I look at the deals, I'm like, yeah, these make sense. That's diversification. And I'm also an LP in the Titan Fund, which is run by JJ Jackson and Travis Lindsay out of Cal State Fullerton. And great group of angels there. I have some fellow TCA members in that fund as well. So it's a small group of angels. There's maybe 20 of us right now. We're closing our first fund and we're opening a new fund, and I'll be in both. And very exciting. It's interesting. So of the companies we saw in 2019, 9 of them received investment from the Titan Fund. So I have a few of my OC angels in the Titan Fund because they like the deal flow we see. They understand the methodology. So that was really, really amazing. And same thing this year. I believe 2 or 3 of our deals this year have also been funded through the Titan Fund. So that's very exciting. And that's a great way. And again, no management fees there either. Everything is done pro bono. Our fund managers get a few more shares in the fund. That's it. So it's clean. They do a fantastic job with due diligence, as the co-fund does, and as Techos Angels. Very clean due diligence process. So that's why I'm in these 2 funds. I respect the fund managers, and it's diversification for my dollars.
Your own portfolio. That's fantastic. And for a lot of investors, angel investors, or some people who are on the fence who really don't know what angel investing is all about, I think this is the lesson that they need to take away. Obviously, they should talk to you and get coaching from you, but beyond that, connecting with a lot of these other funds and investing through them. Yes, in some cases you might pay 2 and 20. Some cases you might give up some dilution, so there, you might get a fewer shares than the management team. But it's totally worth it because you get to see the due diligence process, you get to see the deal flow, and you get to see how these experienced people are making the decisions. Right. And that's such a useful thing when you're learning, when you're brand new to this field. So I think to the new angel investors, this is sort of their entry into this ecosystem. And
I wish I knew when I started, I knew about these funds, because I would have saved so much money. I would have saved so much money. But again, I don't regret it. It's the process the journey that's brought me to here, to where I'm teaching and mentoring others. And I also directly invest. I only write 1 check a year now to a direct investment. So I'm really picky. Yeah, I still directly invest, but it's just 1 a year because I'm sitting on 32 companies in my combined portfolio right now. Right. So if there's something exciting, I'll take a deeper dive for sure.
Fantastic. So let's get into that. I want to learn more about your philosophy. So let's get into how you sort of go through the due diligence process and the 7-point criteria that you referred to a little bit ago. How do you, now that you have all these companies coming to you, how do you start to sort of filter, and how do you get to the companies that you really, really like?
Sure. So they come to me all different ways. I get 20 to 30 a week on average, coming through all my different portals. It's either through our website, through other angel groups, through known, people in the network, through LinkedIn. They come all over, and I can tell pretty quickly if it's a fit for our group. Number one, just what they're doing and how they present themselves. I typically will do a deeper dive with anything that comes from a warm introduction, someone I know. I will take more time and look at it, and then I'll get back to every single one of them. And either I point them to our website to let them know, look at our 7-point criteria. Once you hit that, reconnect with me, good luck to you. Right. Or I'll just let them know this is not something that's of interest to me or my network, but here's some other, resources for you to go try. So I try to let them down easy. The ones that are of interest to me, they could be a little early stage, which means they haven't met our 7-point criteria, which I'll get into in a moment, or or they're just not quite a fit for my group, but they might be a fit for the others. Those I will keep on my ecosystem. I'll take a phone call with the founder. But and then I like to, if it's something intriguing to me and the team is stellar, I'll ask them to keep in touch with me, because once they do meet our criteria, I'd like to bring them back in and see if they're a good fit to pitch to us. And we've had some great success with companies like that. But let me go into the 7-point criteria. Yeah. And this is in no particular order. Okay. This is my investment thesis. So the business sector, of course, we have to have a total addressable market that's growing, and their segment within that market is growing, and the addressable market is growing within that. So that we have to look at the TAM, of course. And then they have to have a differentiator, and that means you've got a high barrier to entry. You can ward off. There's something very unique about what you're bringing to the market. You can ward off the competition. You're head and shoulders above the others. And differentiator could mean anything from your technology your IP, first to market position. You've got the players in the industry already, part of your team. So you're going to have that leg up. You're going to have that head start over anybody that would want to come in and compete against you. Differentiator can mean a lot of things, but you have to have one.
Yep.
Your business model, you have to have a proven go-to-market strategy. You have to be in recurring revenue and growing recurring revenue. You have to be really understanding your metrics, bringing your CAC, your customer acquisition down. Mm-hmm. But the only way you're going to learn how to do that is, number one, figure out your go-to-market strategy, where those first customers are coming from, how costly is it to acquire those customers, and what's the best way to transition that into lower cost dollars. Of course, that comes with volume, and it comes with, let's just maybe focus on one line of business. Those metrics, those numbers, you should know. So you should be able to explain those to me when I'm interviewing you to possibly come pitch to us.
And just on that point, I just want to emphasize knowing your numbers is so important, because I get, I've had entrepreneurs, I've had founders, they want to call themselves CEOs, presidents, whatever, and come to us and talk about their product. And if we just ask them one question, what is your TAM or what is your CAC? And they say, well, I'm not a numbers person. So I don't know, but we're going to make profit. We're going to make money, right? In this industry, because we're awesome. That's where I like to sort of say, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be a numbers person, but you have to have these basic metrics so you can answer, some fundamental questions. And then if we get into due diligence, sure, you can have a CFO or an accountant or someone who can, walk us through a model or something like that. That's not an issue. But knowing your numbers is different from being a numbers person.
Yes, for sure. And that's important, because or else they'll fail. I mean, if they're not really understanding this, they're going to fail. And that comes to my next point. The founder has to have built, scaled, and sold a company, or they'll fail.
Okay.
And people say it's impossible. There's all these young founders. I go, yes, it's not. You're not going to see that in every deal. But if you haven't built, scaled, or sold a company, someone helping you run the company has to have done that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to, when something happens, because they're out there, they're fundraising, they're starting this great enterprise, they're super excited. But with that comes a little bit of ego, and I know what I'm doing. And then when something comes, when the rug's pulled out from under you, which will happen a million times, it's how you react to that. If you're young, you can still be coached. You can, hopefully you're listening to your advisors. You have open lines of communication with your founding team. Yep. You have a process in place on how you work as a team. You're building that company culture. When you're young and inexperienced, you don't even know what a company culture is. So that's why the experience is so important. But really, company culture comes in hand with company success, and it starts from day one. Your mission, your vision statement that you have for your company, for the solution you're selling. Well, that has to come from a place of passion for you. And we see that in founders. So again, if you're not a seasoned founder, someone on your team has to be, because things will go wrong, I promise you, all at the same time. So if you're not quick on your feet, if you're not coachable, if you're not listening to that and going out to the people that can help you solve that problem, you're going to fail. Yep. And you see this a lot in portfolio companies. We have portfolio companies in our portfolios in the two funds. And, I've seen time and time again how we're there to help. We may not be sitting on the board, but we're an investor, and you need to be reaching out to us and consistently communicate to us all the good things. In our KPIs, I like to see a one-pager. Once a month would be great. Once a quarter's, okay. Right. But once a month would be great. And I want to see 3 things you've accomplished, 3 things you're working on, and 3 things you need help from us on. Mm-hmm. And that could be introductions. It's not always extra money. It's introductions to key people, key hires, things like that. If you're communicating with us all along, we're going to have trust and faith in you to drive this company to where it needs to go, and we will reinvest. Because Absolutely. We see this CEO, this team is doing a superb job. We don't expect you to know all the answers, but we expect you to be communicating to us when you're seeing something coming down the hill, like, that could be a problem. Let me talk to everybody. Let me just send out a quick blurb to everyone. And we're going to, trust me, we're going to be making a phone call back to you. We're going to get you on the phone. What's going on? Let's dissect it. We have the knowledge.
Right.
So communication with your investors is so important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm going to Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to take it even a step further. And, a lot of CEOs don't like to talk about failures, or maybe failures is too strong of a word. Pivots maybe is a better word.
Pivot.
Where, you had to sort of change your strategy. Your CTO didn't work out. Okay, hire a new CTO. So, something didn't go right. and you had to change your course. That, to me, I look for that in any even if it's an 18-year-old talking about his new startup. If he can tell me where he pivoted once, when he was 15, or when he earlier in the year when something happened, an event that, pandemic that changed the market completely. If you can tell me those pivots, those changes that you made, that tells me you're coachable, right? You're ready to change your mind. And that's such an important skill. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Keep going. Sorry to stop you there.
No, so that was like the team, right? The team
Yep.
is very important. There's many components to go into the team, but the founder has to build, scaled, and sold.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find that out in due diligence. We're gonna, if we goes that far, we're gonna know all that information. The founders have to be investors in the company. I mean, that sounds like counterintuitive, but we've seen a lot of deals. I mean, when we look at them, when the founders aren't investors, they have no skin in the game. They don't really care. Right. So, and I don't even understand how that happens, but it does. It happens sometimes. So you have to have skin in the game.
Right.
And then we typically we only look at seed and bridge to A rounds, valuations between about 3 to 10 million on average. And those numbers hold up because they're going towards $1 million to several $1 million in sales already when we see them. So that's kind of that's where we like to invest at those stages. We have to have lead investors in the deal from a known angel group or angel or VC that I know, because it just makes life so much easier. I have access to the deal rooms. I can make 1 or 2 phone calls. How are they doing since you've invested? What's gone good? What's gone bad? How are they pivoting? Are they to profitability? All those questions can be answered. The customers staying. What's retention look like? Done very, very easily. So that's important. That's important for us. Burn rate. They have to have 1 year of working capital in the bank. Period.
Yep.
To support the current burn, or they'll go under.
Yeah.
Period. That's like not even negotiable, because if the CEOs have hard enough job to scale the company, to manage the company, to be the visionary, and to realize when they need to be replaced. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully they're talking to their angels, and they can step aside and we can put someone in. Hopefully this is the problem we want to have when they're scaling. Right. We're going to bring the next person in that has the experience to get to the next level. That's important, but you're running the company, but if you're also fundraising and you're a month or 2 away from closing the doors from complete disaster, that's just not good, because we know how fundraising goes. We're the ones writing the check. We don't have to write the check. It's fine. We can do the due diligence and just say, we're going to wait. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's no guarantee there. So if you've got, 1 month going by, 2 months going by, 3, we're out of money. You're done. So you have to have a year in the bank, and that's paid in spades with the portfolio companies that we have in the 2 funds I'm in. So that's been really good. Let's see. And then an exit strategy within, 2 to 5 years. But I'm working on a 7-year one right now, but it's a success story. It's going to be great. But, that's it. That's the name of the game. It's like, 2 to 5 years if you're lucky, longer, if you just hang in there. Like, look at Slack. Slack went IPO, and now they're being, no, they didn't IPO, did they? Or I don't know if they did. And now they're being purchased by Salesforce. I mean, there's so many, there's so many of those are more like unicorn type of stories, but there's so many great deals, that transacted under $1 billion. It's fine. There's equal opportunity for innovation to invest in. So,
and quite frankly, as an angel, there's a very good chance that the company doesn't meet the 5-year deadline. It takes 7 years. It takes 10 years maybe in certain instances. But just having that vision is very important at this stage, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what you're referring to, that the investor is able to look out 5 years and go, okay, there's a good chance I get, bought out, or I get, I'm ready for an IPO by this stage. That sort of mentality is important for an investor.
Right. And that goes in the due diligence. The whole reason we're investing, I mean, we love your idea and you're probably great people. We want to make money. At the end of the day, we want to make money. It's still, we want to make money. We don't want to lose money.
Right.
And we don't want to breaking even is okay. I would have done better in private equity, but we want to make money, and we want to be a part of the journey. We want to help where we can. Yep. And bring innovation, to the market, create jobs, create wealth for others that they can push it forward. There's many reasons why we invest, but it's the passion about the solution, the team that's bringing it to the market, and the customers being happy with it, right? But you want to make money. So having the exit in mind, when I have some rock star stories, but I'll share one or two with you. But that's kind of what you look at. Great, everything's exciting here. Whose radar should you be on?
Right.
Can I make that connection to make sure that you exist, and maybe their venture arm will put a little money in too.
Exactly.
That's really important to have that kind of full connection when you're looking at an angel investor, or when you're looking at a company. How can I help them? Do I have strategic alliance with whatever they need?
Absolutely. That's such a fantastic setup for your rockstar stories, because I really want to learn more about those. So let's, I think the 7-point criteria is so inclusive. I think you covered so many topics, so that's fantastic. So tell us about who got through and what those successes look like, a few years down the line.
Yeah. So one I want to talk about right now is our COVID pivot. Okay. And this couldn't be more perfect. So it's a company that we invested in through the Titan Fund in 2019. At the time, it was called Left Travel, LEFT Travel, and it was a group travel SaaS tool. And it was doing really, really great. I think they did over $1 million in sales in 2019. Wow. Profit, moving towards profitability really quickly. Great team, and lean and mean in a great spot. And one of the things that they found with their group travel teams was that they wanted to have some kind of Slack integration, because a lot of them use Slack to manage their teams. And so they did the Slack integration. That was great. That was one of the upgrades they did with the funding, which was wonderful. So everything's rolling around great, and then COVID hits. So of course, group travel's out the window.
Right.
And when we've got monthly updates from this founder, Cheyenne Wright. And she, in March, it was a weird time, and in April, it might have been March though too. She gave us the good stuff, the stuff she's working on, and the stuff she needs help. She didn't need money. She had about almost 2 years of runway in the bank, which was good, which is really good. Yeah. But she was looking for a pivot, right? So she just questioned us. And so the one thing she was asking from us was introduction to office managers that manage remote. They have to manage remotely now, their teams, and small to medium-sized businesses. So we made introductions, and she sent them out questionnaires. She did her research on, what's missing here? What's missing here when you're managing your teams in something like Slack or Microsoft Teams and things like that. And she took that information. She built out the new platform, just real basic. And I think she launched it live with a few of her beta free customers in August. And they loved it. It was something that was missing from Slack and missing from Microsoft Teams, which was a task manager that you can access through texts, email, on your PC, wherever. And that can easily port into Slack, because as you can imagine, working remotely is new for everybody, a lot of these teams. Yep. And how do you know that besides meeting your goals every week and having your weekly meetings, right, what's also on their plate? We get tasks all the time, every day. I got to call this person back. And it could be personal tasks, and it could be professional tasks. But those are time consuming. I'm going to text my supervisor right now. Oh, hey, I need that report, or I need that report back. And, it can come from text. It could come from a voicemail rarely, or an email. And so to have a place to be able to store all those tasks, put them in there, and then you get gentle reminders every day, but it integrates, and the reporting integrates into Slack and Microsoft Teams and Google Office is brilliant, because from what I understand, none of those platforms have tasks. They have a task manager to really manage and report. So she's in revenue now, and they're closing their small seed raise round right now. We're investing more out of Titan. I'm looking to possibly make a direct investment next year. I want to see how this performs, but it's very exciting. That's a wonderful example of a young entrepreneur that has business background though. She listens, she does her research, she's mindful of our dollars. She's a great steward of the investment dollars. And she's really thinking beyond the box, seeing what we have right now, why recreate the wheel, and she's pivoted so beautifully. So that's exciting. But again, it's the people, it's the solution they're bringing to market. Yep. She was doing it great with Left Travel, but she's doing it awesome now with Office Otter. Yeah. So that's been exciting to watch that pivot and see, how she's coming, around on the other side. I know not everyone has that opportunity, but having that coachability, that open-mindedness, those goals in place, team culture, even though they're a small team there, they still have this company culture where they're all in it together.
Yeah.
Everyone's voice is important. Everyone's input and what you work on is so important and valued.
This is such a perfect example because travel industry was destroyed earlier in the year, right? March, April.
Yes.
And a lot of those CEOs sat back on the sideline and said, hey, this is only a 2-month event. This is only a 3-month event, and things will come back. Things will come back. And then they're just going through their burn and waiting for the market to return to normal. And here we are, 8 months later, 9 months later,
Yes.
and things are not really changing all that much. Travel is still depressed. So this is such a perfect example of someone who didn't just sit back and waited for the market to come back. They sort of pivoted and said, hey, if people are going here, let me go there also, and let me see if I can take advantage of this. So I love that example. But my guess is all of your portfolio companies are not like that. So
no.
I'm trying to I'm trying to be
Yeah.
gentle,
So
but I'd love to
we're
talk about some
fortunate.
failures
Yes.
or lesson learned as well.
We're fortunate that in all of our portfolio companies within Titan and Cove, in Cove Fund, we only have one that's not going to make it so far. And again, they're in the gaming space, and I'm equating the gaming space to the cannabis space because that was one of the sectors we were looking at this year. I picked a sector or two for us to study. To see it's an upcoming sector, it's a hot sector to invest in. And I just can't wrap my mind around esports and e-gaming. I know it's going to be very lucrative, but it's kind of like cannabis because you're dealing with things that I don't understand, and the VC and startup world doesn't really understand. They don't speak our language. So it remains to be seen where the opportunities will be there, but we're still looking.
Yep.
But so that's a company within the Cove portfolio that just isn't looking good, but everyone else is looking pretty good. They have money in the bank, they're in growing MRR, the funding is coming in, they're getting funded in subsequent rounds, or they don't need the funding, so that's been good. And then I think we only had one or two in the Titan Fund that are on the ropes. One's a consumer facing company, but they were already having problems before COVID.
Yep.
And that's just the name of the game anyway. In any fund,
Right.
they're not all going to make it.
Right.
And so we've been pretty fortunate. We're not seeing a big bloodbath of, oops, this isn't working for us, or we're caught with not enough money, and the sales have definitely slowed with some of them for sure, especially our med tech and diagnostic companies in our portfolios, but for the most part they're hanging in there, which is really great, and lots of them are doing really well. Ready Set Food, which is in the Titan Fund, they actually received funding from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank before they pitched to us. I mean, after they pitched to us in January 2019 or June 2019, and then they were on Shark Tank this past January and they received funding. Awesome. And then Mark Cuban introduced them to Danone Ventures, Danone yogurt. Yep. And so I've subsequently have connected with Danone Manifesto Ventures because there's other companies, here's again full circle, other companies in our portfolio, they're in the food and beverage space that might be of interest to them because that's who they acquire. Yep. So that was like really fortuitous to have Ready Set Food. And I met them at the Roth Capital event that they have every year in Nagel. I met him like a year or so ago. Ready Set Food was there. So it's weird how you meet these companies, but great team, unique innovation. It's basically introducing the allergen to the infant so they don't ever get the allergy, like in their formula when they're like a few weeks old, like a month and a half old. So, it's saving lives, it's saving money, great kicks, great rock star team of doctors and people from the industry that understand uniquely how painful food allergies can be for children and adults. So it's just it's another great story. So they're doing really, really well. I had an exit this year. It's a company called Empire, and they did kind of like banner ad, back end advertising for payment processing and for small business. Okay. And they were acquired by Avenjo, which is a large company out of Minnesota that's in the payment processing space. And they rebranded the company. Now it's called Fig. So it kind of does back end advertising at that payment processing. When you process the payment, it gives the vendor, number one, all the specifics on your payment, but then it offers all these other robust features where you can continue to have that communication, that marketing with that client.
Nice.
So it's that kind of the back end technology. So that was really exciting. That was good this year. And and there's, so many others companies that we invested in this year that still have some time to go, but they're right place, right time.
Right.
Udify. So another sector we looked to study this year was digital healthcare.
Yep.
Digital healthcare and anything that's, you can do remotely, remote healthcare trends.
Mm-hmm.
And in June, Udify pitched to us. They've received funding.
In the mental health space. So
mental health space. We met. Yeah. Yes. So you're very familiar with Ravi and the team over there.
Yep, exactly.
And they're doing so great. He's bringing on some great team members. So we were happy to invest in that opportunity. So
Fantastic.
and the timing couldn't have been better. I mean, this company's been around for a while. They're
Yep.
succeeding. They're going to succeed even more because it's now adapted.
Yep.
Because there's waves of technology, right? Remember we had a cell phone? Oh, and it's not as big as a brick. And oh my gosh, the flip phone, but not everyone had them. It takes time to adapt that technology and the way of living with like that. That's telemedicine. COVID put telemedicine on the map now. Now it's hard to go back.
Yep.
And because it's more efficient. It really is more efficient to do it this way. Of course, there's going to be times where you're going to need to see your doctor one-on-one, but isn't it nice to know that you can access this help you need privately and conveniently? Exactly. And that's really what we're going to see bringing to the mainstream, that it's not taboo. You're going to get the same level of experience as you would seeing them in person, and you can still get your prescriptions. That this is a big game changer in medicine and diagnosing things. So Udify is riding that wave. Rockstar team, money in the bank. They're just doing it. So that was an exciting thing to invest in.
Fantastic. I feel like I can talk to you for days about all of the portfolio companies and all the companies you're looking at. This is such a fantastic conversation. But I think we're already about 40 minutes into the conversation.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you the last question that I always ask investors. And that is sort of the action step question from the founders that are probably watching this interview. And the action step that they really want is, what is one thing that they have to do right now to get an investment from you? What is sort of the most important things? And we went through the seven criteria. So maybe it's one of those, but the idea is that, this is one thing without which you're not going to write a check. They're never going to get an investment. So tell me what that thing is for you.
It's a team. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to understand the solution, but we're investing in the people. Yeah. So, if you come through the due diligence process, the interview process, with us having a lot of trust and a lot of faith with the team to take it to the next level, that this is the right team for this right solution right now, that's half the battle right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So make sure you have the right partners. It may not be co-founders, it may be employees, it may be advisors, it may be people who are guiding you, but make sure you have that support system.
That's really important. I mean, there's many other factors, but at the end of the day, you're investing in people. That's I've seen some great companies with great solutions, and the people did not thrill me. They had no passion. I'm like, no, I'm not investing in this. They had no energy, they had no passion. And I get it. Not everyone's a born pitch person, but find someone on your team that is. It does a better job than you. Because you can just stand on the side, and I've seen this all the time where I'm like, why is that person pitching? I don't understand. Where their sales guys goes in there and translate what they just said. Right. I'm like, not that we couldn't understand them, but just the way they were saying it, we're like, what does that mean? That's confusing. Right. And so find out quickly if you're a good person at pitching. If you're not, find someone on your team that's better than you and have them do it. But be there. I'm the CEO. We're going to have Tracy take it over, and then you can field the questions. Yeah, because a lot can get lost in translation.
Yeah. I think that's so important, that enthusiasm, that drive. One of the main reasons why we started Startup Steroid was to see that drive in people, right? In a lot of pitch events, you don't see the drive because it's a prepared 10-minute speech that they're essentially reading off or have memorized and are delivering to you. This is investing is about so much more than that, right? It's when you make that eye contact and you see the passion, it comes through. So you have to be able to deliver that, and if you can't, then find someone who can.
Exactly.
And have them pitch. Absolutely.
And that's fine too, because that's our first blush of what's happening here. Right. And if that comes off well, and we know you can't answer every question in the pitch deck, but the Q&A goes well, and we feel fairly confident you guys know what you're doing. will open a due diligence conversation.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
important.
And in due diligence, we'll get into all the nitty gritty. So you don't have
Yeah.
to try to explain us your platform or the back
Yeah.
end technology that you're using. You don't have to get into all of that. Right
No.
now, just show us who you are and show us your passion. And then we
Yes.
can start the conversation.
That's so true. So true.
Absolutely. Xandra, thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation. I love talking to you. Thank you for coming on today. And I look forward to, do you want to take a picture?
Yeah, I'm taking a picture of you.
Okay.
And my new phone.
No, but I appreciate you. And
So
let's
fun.
stay connected. I
Oh,
attended
yes.
one of your events, OC
Yes.
events, and I hope to attend a lot more in the future.
Yes.
And hopefully you can come to Thai and attend some of our events over here, and
Would love to.
we'll keep it going.
Yes. Thank you. I had a great time. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. All right. Bye. Bye.